Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go back to the early news of June 24th. And I think it's now conventional wisdom that most of us were surprised. And that's probably one of the reasons why it took a bit of time, roughly 3-4 months, until roughly now, for the dust to settle and for the main actors to start beginning a clearing process which would be making up their mind. And in fact, it's only since the recent Tory party conference that we've started guessing both the meaning and the process of Brexit. Starting with process, 3 stages, stage 1, stage 3, and as a consequence of stage 1 and stage 3, stage 2. Stage 1 is the famous Article 50, the divorce arrangements, the terms of separation, what you do with assets and liabilities. The FT number, which appeared in the press last week, sort of 20 million check for UK, for most experts is a very low figure as compared to what probably reality will be. You have to discuss the pensions of the roughly 230 and 2,300 civil servants of British nationality working in the Commission. So you have to treat this divorce, and this will basically be done by lawyers. And we know that if Theresa May is right, that she will trigger the thing next March. This will be ending March 2019, just in time for us, continental Europeans, to know that we will not have British parliamentarians in the next European Parliament. That's the political deadline. That's why March 2019 is the end of phase 1. Phase 3 will be about the running of the future relationship between UK and EU 27, the sort of final landing zone. But we all agree that the terms of this final landing zone will only appear after a very long and complex negotiation, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Not just trade, of course trade, and trade matters a lot in the British economy and the British culture, but many other things like Erasmus, police, fisheries. You know, fish do not vote, they don't know about frontiers, but fishing rights is something that will have to be reassessed with Brexit. This will be extremely complex, zero chance that this is ready for 2019, so there will be some sort of interim period where provisional arrangements plus maybe a bit of phasing in of what could be future arrangements will appear. So that's roughly what we are talking about in terms of sequencing. My own guess, and Joanne, you asked me to be frank, and I'll be frank. My own guess as a sort of expert, I'm not talking here as a politician, I'm not talking here as a European, I'm not talking about what I wish or what I don't wish, that's another story. My own expert guess is that the thing will probably clear 10 years from now. That's the timing. Now substance. Substance, hard Brexit rather than soft Brexit. What could have been soft Brexit, sort of Swiss-like, Norwegian-like arrangement. A good friend of mine once said, the difference between belonging to the Union and soft Brexit is if you belong to the Union, you've got 1 foot in and 1 foot out, which was the case of the Brits. Soft Brexit would be 1 foot out and 1 foot in, and that's a big difference. That's soft Brexit. But as we know now, Brexit is Brexit and the internal market is the internal market. And with these two affirmations, the possible convergence between Brexit is Brexit and belonging to the internal market is zero. That's why the picture is now for hard Brexit, UK as a third country having to negotiate with the European Union the conditions under which it accedes or not to this famous internal market. And the best example, and one that probably matters for many of you in this room, is this famous issue of the passport. Hard Brexit means that the UK financial industry will lose its passport, and that a number of financial operations will have to go to other places than the City of London. Not that the City of London will be really harmed by this, but it will be harmed because quite a lot of operators down there went to London because of the comparative advantage, the formidable comparative advantage of the city, the sort of ecosystem it has, plus the fact that once there, you could access the whole of the European system. This, of course, will be lost. And think about euro clearing, for instance, just to have an example of the sort of amount of operations that will drift elsewhere. And this is why Frankfurt, Milan, Dublin, and even Paris have started a campaign. And I'll just give you the motto which appeared on the French side, coincidentally, yesterday. They are starting a campaign, and the motto of the campaign, maybe some of you have seen it, is enough of the fog, try the frogs. Which I think is a reasonably British way for the French to put their case in order to promote Paris. Now, that's where we are, and I personally believe that it's no coincidence that we sort of rush to hard Brexit. This is where the politics converge. This is the version that allows the British Prime Minister to keep her party united. The Brexiters want it this way, and the Remainers want the bill to be such that maybe the Brexiters might have a second thought. So they converge on this version. And on the continent side, the EU27 have no view that the Brits should be punished. But they don't want to be punished by their own electorates. And for this, their strategy is to make Brexit at a high price. So these forces, which are political forces, which are not economic forces, these forces converge to this hard Brexit, and I think that's where the current is going, which leads me to my last point, which is the 100 billion £1,000 question, which is whether at the end of the day Brexit will happen. Again, I've asked to be frank. My frank answer to this question is I think it's likely to happen, not least because the people have spoken, but I'm not sure about that. The probability for Brexit not happening are not zero. Why? Because because of complexity. The amount of problem to solve, the Everest amount of problems to solve is such that it may just not be possible because of sheer complexity. I'm not going to list this. Those of you who want to have a precise notion of that should have a look at the list which the Japanese government, pushed by Kaindaren, which is the Japanese industry organization, gave to the British Prime Minister on the occasion of the last G20 summit in China. If many of you want to have this, I have it. And it's a very interesting document. It's a 15 pages, incredibly brutal list of questions, Japanese-like, which list, if I'm a Japanese investor, what do I need to know from you in order to make up my mind for the next years? And at the end of the day, even extremely sophisticated experts in physics tell you that getting an egg out of an omelette is something which is hard to do. Even with a lot of science of fluids and solids and liquids, and even with a lot of pressure, temperature, you might not just get there. The other reason why it might not happen is because of the final impact in terms of the economy. I've seen no serious study that said that this would be good for the British economy at the horizon of 10 years from now. And by the way, if you look at where the pound has been going since 24th of July, that's probably also the view of markets in general. But we don't know whether it's going to be a high bill or a medium-low bill. The cost of the operation will matter, and by the way, it will matter for both sides. I know enough of the European Union to know that if UK is harmed, EU is harmed. If UK is harmed, the EU 27 will be harmed. Whatever we think about politics, the interpenetration of our economic systems is such. Okay, we only will be hurt sort of 20% of the shock for the British, but 20% of the shock for the British may be a big shock because we are a big system. So that's the other big question mark. One cannot exclude that if the economics of that at some stage appear not to be in favor of what at least part of those who voted for Brexit thought, people might change their mind. I'm not saying, again, it will happen. If I had to bet, I would not bet on that, but I might put a bit of money on the other side also. And that's simply because, and that's my final point, it's one good example of what we're seeing on this world for some time, after decades of economics and politics interacting with each other in a way where economic rationality, at the end of the day, would trump political irrationality. That's the world I've been living in for 2 or 3 decades, which were the most active parts of my professional life. I think this has changed. We are in a period where politics, geopolitics, trump economics and geoeconomics, and my notion of Trump has nothing to do with a pan on words. But that's I think what's happening. And for people like you, for people like me, in a way, it makes life extremely interesting. I don't like what's happening, but it is incredibly interesting. For people like you, it creates probably a lot of uncertainties. So good luck, because you'll need a lot of brain juice to adjust to that. Thank you.